How's it going? There we go. There we go. Click the right scene this time. I'll blame it on Dot. She's nearby. She's causing trouble as she always does. She was shockingly silent for like an hour this afternoon, and I was terrified of what she was doing, but really she was just chewing the new toy I gave her. Thank goodness. I have a lot to talk about this evening. We're going to talk about Christopher Wray. I'm tweaking my caffeine intake so that hopefully I have a little bit more energy for you guys because we have a lot to talk about. Let's see. I wanted to talk about Margot Robbie, but I you know what? I think before we talk about that, we're going to start with a good news story about Hollywood. Believe it or not, such stories do exist. So let's see what we got from the Daily Caller. A-listers are lining up to leave Hollywood. Why? Superstar British actors Tom Holland and Emily Blunt both voiced their disdain for Hollywood in podcast interviews published in mid-July. Holland, 27, told Jay Shetty's On Purpose podcast that the entertainment industry is really not his cup of tea, even though he really loves the art of filmmaking. Two things can certainly be true at once. Look, I'm a massive fan of making movies, but I really do not like Hollywood. It is not for me, he explained. The business really scares me. I understand that I'm a part of that business and I enjoy my kind of interactions with it. Holland's stardom has transcended international boundaries despite his tender age, due largely to his incredible talent. His latest show, The Crowded Room, is one of Apple TV's most popular offerings as of this writing. Of course, I have no idea what that show is about or any of this nonsense. I don't watch a lot of TV. Andy and I mostly watch reruns of shows that we know that we like. I'm always looking for ways to kind of remove myself from it, to kind of just live as a normal life as possible, he continued. And a normal life clearly isn't what some of his peers get to experience. That's true. I've seen so many people come before me and lose themselves, and I've had friends that I've grown up with that aren't friends of mine anymore because they've lost themselves to this business. Holland added, I am just really, really keen to focus on what makes me happy, which is my family, my friends, my carpentry, golf, charity that my mom runs. Those are all fantastic, truly human hobbies, and I fully respect his choice to want to move away from Hollywood for that end. In fact, I was never in a position as, important as Tom Holland was, but I kind of understand what it's like to be in the spotlight a little bit like this, because everything you do is under scrutiny with these people. If they ever go out, if they wear the wrong thing, if they date the wrong person, there's commentary about that. That kind of thing just sounds exhausting based on the little tiny taste of it I got. Emily Blunt, 40, seems to echo Holland's sentiments on the importance of family while being interviewed on the Table for Two with Bruce Bozzi podcast. This year, I'm not working. I worked quite a bit last year, and my oldest baby is 9, so we're in the last year of single digits, she told the show. Yeah, absolutely. Blunt shares 2 daughters with her husband, the Office show John Krasinski. Oh my gosh. And I just feel like there are cornerstones to their day that are so important when they're little, she continued. And it's like, will you wake me up? Will you take me to school? Will you pick me up? Will you put me to bed? And I just need to be there for all of them for a good stretch. And I just felt that in my bones. So she's feeling the pull of motherhood, where Tom is feeling like too much pressure from this ridiculous machine that Hollywood is. He's also wanting to do his own hobbies. Emily is feeling the call of motherhood, and I fully respect that for sure. She went on to admit that Hollywood can be very disappointing for women. My toes curl when people tell me my daughter wants to be an actress. I want to say don't do it, she told Harper's Bazaar in early June. It's a hard industry, and it can be very disappointing. A lot of people tell you not to take things personally, but it's completely personal, especially when you're being judged on how you look. So you just have to endure that side of things. It sounds like being famous just isn't all it's cracked up to be, and the faults within the superficiality of Hollywood are finally breaking down after about 100 years of existence. Oh well, it was fun while it lasted, except for everyone involved in it. Is it just me, or is it kind of lovely to see 2 of the biggest industry names call out how toxic Hollywood is and what a safe haven one's family can be? So refreshing. Absolutely, I agree with the author of this piece. And you can watch Tom Holland's full interview. Yeah, I thought this was wonderful. I thought that's really cool. As somebody who kind of moved out of the public eye so that I could focus on building my own family and being a housewife and trying to live out the life that I was constantly telling people that I thought was important, I really think that My respect for people who do similar things, for people who step up, and for people who actually follow what they think is right, increased exponentially. And I have to say, I truly respect that. So I wanted to bring you guys that positive story, because we don't hear a lot of positive things about Hollywood, right? Most recently, we were talking about human trafficking. That was horrible. In fact, that video got demonetized on YouTube, which really doesn't surprise me at all. But I just wanted to put it out there because I thought it needed to be said. Now, Emily Blunt pointed out that women are heavily judged on the basis of how they look. And this has actually been so interesting to me lately, because I promise we'll move on. We'll talk about the FBI appointee. And I just want to point this out before we move on. This is commentary coming from the right that I truly do not understand. And it makes me think that there might actually be a lot of latent homosexuality in the right-wing movement. Because look at this. This is crazy, right? Here's a picture of Margot Robbie smiling gently while she looks into the camera. And this commentator says, "This is her without makeup. Definitely mid." Margot Robbie is not mid in any universe. In fact, I will refer you to this person's portrait to draw your own conclusions about what mid actually looks like. I mean, holy cow. Let's not point fingers, buddy. He is defending himself vociferously in the comments because people are like, "Are you insane?" Abby says if she's mid, then you're a 1. She got 22,000 likes on that comment, and she's correct. You're a perfect example of why libertarians suck at convincing anyone of anything. I didn't realize he was a libertarian. I thought he was a right-leaning individual. But I want to point out, this is kind of tied into remember the Jordan Peterson conversation where people were making fun of him for not thinking that this lady on the cover of Sports Illustrated was attractive because she was heavier probably than he found attractive. Everyone was like, oh, smash or pass with Jordan Peterson, whatever. They were kind of making fun of him. But at the same time, it was like, he was talking about authoritarianism, telling you that someone is beautiful who is not, right? And the more I thought about it, the more I puzzled out that beauty actually is truly subjective. Now, we can talk about the actual objective role of beauty in art and in design and stuff like that. We could talk about the role of beauty is so ephemeral and hard to pin down. I really don't know that anyone has the right to try to do that. But I will say right now that there are a lot of very, very mid gentlemen out there criticizing a prolific and talented actress as not being attractive enough. And I'm just scratching my head. But at the end of the day, I will say I will not argue with someone over what their taste is. Okay? Because there's one thing that you cannot deny to someone, and that is their own opinion of things. This is why someone's opinion is unfalsifiable, and that's exactly as it should be. If I tell you that I like asparagus, you cannot contradict me, okay? Unless maybe you've seen me turn it down time and time again. Maybe I only like it a certain way. I'm telling you something about myself that you don't really have any right to contradict. Now, if you are telling other people what they should think about this person, that I kind of take issue with. But at the end of the day, the subjectivity of beauty is such that I not really going to argue with you if you don't think that someone's not attractive. That's fine. And Jordan Peterson was right about authoritarianism cramming down what's beautiful and what's not. She, I think, is absolutely lovely without makeup. She has very lovely clear skin. So one of the key components of objective beauty is a symmetrical face. Most human faces are not very symmetrical. Mine certainly is not, but hers appears to be, at least at first glance, to be largely symmetrical in a very appealing way. There's a reason she lands these roles. There's a reason she works in Hollywood, okay? And it's not because she is, quote, mid. So I will rest my case there. And this person says, if this is mid, you MFs have lost the plot. Yes, she's absolutely beautiful, especially when she has very nicely done, very light makeup. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I know that is, for some reason, a conversation on Twitter right now. Seriously, give me a break. But I just wanted to put in my 2 cents because I thought it was kind of interesting and just wanted to highlight that, yes, you are entitled to your own opinion, but you do not get to tell someone else what they should think is attractive. Oh, this is a good point from Allie Beth. I swear the line between the red pill movement and homosexuality is so thin these days. Yeah. Like if you're just simply not attracted to women and are grossed out by them, no need to shroud your woman hating in faux masculinity. That's a good point. We've seen a lot of misogyny coming from members of not the right wing, but the red pill community that I know a lot of people, even in my audience, respect. And that's fine, 100%. I understand that guys have gone through hard times. But I think that if you're going to be a misogynist, you are undermining what you're trying to do. If you're trying to strengthen men, you need to also recognize who their actual enemies are. And their actual enemies are not the opposite gender. So, I digress. Let's talk about the FBI. So, So this, I think, is your first red flag. This is from January 2021. Biden to keep Wray on as FBI director. So we are going to go down the Wray path and discuss how exactly he ended up in the position he's in right now. He is staying, so apparently someone else put him in office. He's staying at the helm of the FBI. And if you could gather from the title of this video, that person was, in fact, Donald Trump. And now I do kind of trust Fox not to take this down for a copyright strike, but we're just going to play him talking here and see what they do with that.
You happy with Chris Wray? But just so you understand, I put Chris Wray in because I wanted to have somebody in there that everybody, including the other side, really wanted. It may not have been the right move. Let's see. Time will tell, okay? But I wanted to have somebody in the FBI because I'm an honorable guy. I'm an honest guy. I may have made a mistake, but I put somebody in that the other side, everybody agreed to. You know who recommended him to me? Chris Christie. Okay? He recommended him. And that's okay. I don't mind that. I've taken Chris Christie's recommendations before. And other people wanted Christopher Wray. And people from the other side wanted Christopher Wray. You happy with that?
Okay, so there, I don't know if you could hear it very well because my computer's a little muffled. He's literally just saying, I chose Christopher Wray because he's an honorable guy. I'm an honorable guy. We'll see if it works out. I picked him because people on the other side like him, etc. This has long been, so now we know, first of all, that Christopher Wray was appointed by Donald Trump. Christopher Wray, whom we now know and love as the guy who's basically turned the FBI into the worst possible version of itself. And we'll talk about how Trump responded to him down the road after he appointed him. But we know that he was recommended by Chris Christie. Trump said he had impeccable credentials when he appointed him. We know that Pence really, really, really wanted to get rid of Wray. And so did Trump later on down the line. In fact, when I looked Christopher Wray up, all of these articles, Trump attacks his own FBI director after he defends report. Trump called FBI Director Chris Wray the worst member of his administration, blaming Chris Christie, of course. Trump slams FBI Chief Christopher Wray. Yep. Yeah. Oh, and the FBI director threatened to resign amid all of this nonsense. Interesting. Well, so we are in a bit of a pickle because I was personally told by the Trump administration that pardon me, I was told that Trump only hires the best people. And I remember thinking during Trump's administration how ironic it was that he was the man who supposedly went on TV and fired people, and he wasn't firing all of these ridiculous people that he'd put into office. I was like, okay, he clearly has some issues with character calls, right? He clearly is not the best judge of character. That's okay. There's no shame in that. Not a big deal. But if you're not a good judge of character, you absolutely need to figure out a way to delegate that to someone who is. You need someone on your side who is a good judge of character. And I say this as a blanket statement to anyone in a position of authority. You need to come to terms with your own personal character judgment skills. And then if you realize that you're not good at it, you need to outsource it because you need to be a good judge of character. And that's very clear to see. This is true at every level. And I include the highest levels of federal government in this. And I mean all the way down to the smallest business. If you don't want to be destroyed as a business, you need to know the character of the people you're hiring. This is what HR is technically kind of supposed to be, but it's not really at the end of the day. You need an actual person on your side who will tell you no. You should not hire that person. That person is going to be bad news. And I really think that if you were to look at Christopher Wray's past, there probably were clues that would have told you not to hire him. Unfortunately, Chris Christie recommended him. Trump was very suggestible. He was trying to get along with both sides, apparently. That was long a pet peeve of mine, was with Trump going on all these mainstream media news organizations, like their interviews with them, and then just being lambasted and taken out of context and just stripped of all like framework to what he was saying. And they did this constantly. And I've constantly said the people who changed their mind about Trump were the people who actually went and listened to his speeches. So instead of getting the mainstream media version of Trump, they were getting the actual version of Trump where he was not saying horrible racist things, horrible misogynist things, but he kept going on these programs. In fact, he most recently did his town hall with CNN. Of all places, CNN, he's refusing to go with the Blaze for some reason. And he's outright said that he's not going to be debating with Fox News, even with Tucker Carlson moderating. So I think, no, Tucker Carlson was with the Blaze and he didn't want to do anything with Fox moving forward. So I don't know. I just don't understand it. I wish that he weren't constantly trying to be playing both sides of the field, trying to get everyone together to like him, because that was ultimately the feeling that I got with him. And it was so frustrating, because it was just like, you're never going to get everyone to like you. And this is actually part of my frustration with DeSantis right now too, is that he's been unwilling to go on and go to battle with these left-leaning media organizations. Now, I just got done saying that my frustration with Trump was that he would just go on and allow these networks to cut him however they wanted to. But at the end of the day, for DeSantis, I think that for his flagging campaign, he needs to tangle with the mainstream media and show that he is not willing to be stripped out of context. He needs to pick up the mantle where Trump left it if he hopes to have any kind of chance in this race. That being said, it is still July of the year previous. Whoever the nominee is, I'm sure will be great. I don't think we're going to get a truly conservative president in 2024. We'll see what happens. I could be wrong. I was wrong about 2022, unfortunately. Tucker Carlson was unfortunately optimistic about the GOP in 2022, but I will not make the same mistake moving forward. But Glenn Greenwald has really good commentary on the Chris Wray hearing. The reason FBI Director Chris Wray can't define disinformation, even though that's the basis for the FBI's pressure campaign on big tech to censor Americans, is it's a BS concocted term with no fixed meaning. That is what gives it its power, like terrorism. So this is actually something that I observed with a lot of words that the left likes to throw around. They won't give you a definite answer, and this tracks right back to postmodernism. So postmodernism delights in being incredibly difficult to pin down. And it makes sense why, if you think about it, because if you're really, really hard to pin down, how is anyone going to push back against you? It's going to be punching the mist. And that's exactly what they're going for here. And we saw this with the Patriot Act. We saw this with a term like terrorism. Now, when I did speech and debate in high school, the first thing we did when we were presenting an affirmative case was go in there and lay the groundwork with some definitions. Here are the definitions we will be using. Here's why we use these particular definitions. Maybe you build your case on a certain definition. Maybe you want to clarify any concerns about it. The negative team can give you an alternate definition if they take grave enough issue with yours. But at the end of the day, it was very, very important to pin those down first and make sure that everyone was on the same page. And that's why the left doesn't want to do it. Glenn has a very keen observation there. Let's watch this clip. They did this under the guise that it was disinformation. Can you define what disinformation is? Should be simple enough, right? What I can tell you is that our focus is not on disinformation broadly speaking. No? No? You sure about that? Director Wray's FBI is responsible for repeated First Amendment violations, and he cannot answer for it. So let's listen to this clip. I will point the microphone that way so you guys can hear it better this time.
Shows you, your agency, the people that directly report to you, suppressed conservative-leaning free speech about topics like laptop, the lab leak theory of COVID-19's origin, the effectiveness of masks and COVID-19 lockdowns and vaccines, speech about election integrity in the 2020 presidential election, security of voting by mail, even parody about the president himself, negative posts about the economy. The FBI made the social media platforms pull that information off the internet if it came from conservative sources. They did this under the guise that it was disinformation. Can you define what disinformation is?
What I can tell you is that our focus is not on disinformation, broadly speaking.
Well, wait a minute. Yes, it is. Wait a minute.
Can I answer the question?
You can in a minute. Your star witness said in the litigation, Elvis Chan, who's in charge of this, said they do it on the basis of disinformation. We need a definition of what that is.
Our focus is on malign foreign disinformation. That is, foreign hostile actors who engage in covert efforts to abuse our social media platforms, which is something that is not seriously in dispute.
I have to stop you for time.
That's a really interesting thing to say, Christopher Wray, because we just found out that Ukraine was actively conspiring with the FBI to literally censor American citizens' First Amendment protected free speech in the name of making sure that no one was trying to second guess the war in Ukraine. So I really hope that the GOP does something with this. I officially have no faith in the party at this point. I don't consider myself a GOP voter. I consider myself an independent. And they better do something with this, because this is highest level, highest possible violation of the Constitution that I think I've ever seen. And you can bet your buttons, that it will only get worse if they're not actually held to account. Unfortunately, we have a very weak Republican Party. It makes me kind of hopeless, but maybe something will come of this. However, I feel like we have hearings like this again and again and again, and these politicians get the clips that they want, and they make the points off of this, and they get the gotcha and whatever. Nothing ever happens, and it's just frustrating to see. However, we can hold out hope. Hope springs eternal, etc. And I'm very happy that they're hearing this out. But again, we'll see what happens going forward. But I just wanted to highlight that to you guys, because the postmodernism there is so great. And it's just glaring. And it's like, why are we not paying closer attention to this, honestly? Because I feel like we're really missing opportunities here if we don't take advantage of what the left is doing. We need to know exactly how it's working. And I don't think we do right now. And it's been frustrating to me that we can't even figure out exactly what... we can't even figure out what we're fighting against. And that's partly the power of postmodernism and the unwillingness to be defined in any meaningful way. Very, very, very important tool if you are going to fight this kind of war. They're really making it work, and we are bad at countering it because we're so slow to the draw. But I'm optimistic we will make something positive happen out of this. Let's hop on over to this conversation, since we were talking about censorship and all kinds of ridiculous shenanigans. Democrat Eric Swalwell says Hunter Biden's laptop was just full of, quote, non-consensual nudes, and claims it is bananas to suggest it influenced the 2020 results because the FBI refused to release it. Well, in a minute, we're going to pull up data talking about people who would have been swayed if they'd seen the Hunter Biden laptop, and that's kind of telling. California Representative Eric Swalwell said it's bananas to think suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story influenced the 2020 election. Oh, excuse me, I have hiccups. I have very bad heartburn this evening. We'll see how long I can go. Accused Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan and the GOP of obsessing over non-consensual naked images of Hunter on the hard drive. There is no proof naked images were not consensual, and other information led to allegations President Biden was involved with his son's shady foreign business. I'm very glad they threw that in at the end there. I will tell you right now, if there are any unclothed pictures of Hunter Biden on Hunter Biden's laptop, you can be darn sure that he was the one who actually took those pictures. So don't talk to me about non-consensual. If you surrender your personal property by leaving it at a repair shop for months on end, you can be darn sure that it's going to come back to bite you, especially if you have evidence of illegal activities on it. Sorry. Representative Eric Swalwell got into a bitter public display with Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan during a hearing with FBI Director Christopher Wray, while arguing that the GOP has turned into the party of non-consensual nudes. Oh, that used to be the Democrats, but here we are, how the tables table. The California Democrat reduced the discoveries found on Hunter Biden's hard drive to his nude images, despite a slew of damning evidence from the laptop that Republicans maintain could have altered the outcome of the 2020 elections. The more we learn about the Hunter Biden laptop, the more clear it is that if people had known that Joe Biden was working hand in hand with his corrupt son and these corrupt companies in Ukraine and China and all these other places, that would have definitely affected the outcome of the 2020 election. And there is 100% a reason the FBI chose to ignore this until it was too late. Swalwell said during the hearing Wednesday that it's bananas, blah, blah, blah. We talked about that. While there were several shocking images of the president's son taking drugs and engaging in sexual acts, and one of him naked holding a gun, what can I say? Our Hunter, he's a classy gentleman. There was also emails between Hunter and his business associates and foreign partners. Specifically, there are emails that remain under investigation because it allegedly links President Biden to his son's shady foreign business, as if the "I am sitting here with my father" text wasn't enough. This is wild stuff. Absolutely wild. Chairman, I've counted in this hearing, and we're only about an hour in, the use of the word laptop about 20 times, Swalwell lamented after questioning Wray at the judiciary hearing on Wednesday. In fact, in the chairman's opening statement, he said he's upset that he believed the FBI prevented more Americans from learning about a private citizen's laptop. He said in a swipe at Representative Jordan, adding, "That is bananas to me." Okay, so if your father is the President of the United States of America, I'm sorry, but you lose some of the typical privacy afforded to the typical citizen, especially if it starts to come to light that your father has been working with you to get, let's see what it was, $5 million from a Chinese businessman. I think it was in 2017, shortly after a text was sent to him about how you are sitting there with your father and you expect answers on this tonight. Clear and present corruption. I am a simple woman. I can't keep track of all these fancy conspiracy films. I can keep track of this one. It's very open and shut. This is insane corruption to the degree that Joe Biden should 100% have been impeached immediately as soon as we knew even the slightest shred of this. The GOP maintained that suppression could have been part of a larger campaign to keep under wraps how the Biden family enriched themselves through President Biden's office. Very, very interesting. Oh, Lord. Sorry, guys. You're bringing up FISA every single question. You're essentially saying to the American people that you're guardians of personal security and privacy, but the 2020 election was determined because the FBI didn't let more Americans see a private citizen's non-consensual nudes. Okay, so Eric Swalwell is not a smart man. He is probably on par with Adam Kinzinger. He actually had an affair with an actual foreign spy, that is a lady from China, and he tried to blame a mug for unfortunate rude sounds that he himself caused. So he's really not got a strong record. And he also threatened to nuke American citizens for wanting to keep their right to own arms. Just saying. I used to refer to him as Duke Nukem because he kept talking about how American citizens have no way to take recourse against a government that decides they want to nuke them and their guns aren't going to save them. And it's like, you're making the case for people who wish to remain armed by threatening them with governmental force. Mind-blowing. He never thinks past what he's saying right now. He never thinks down the road, and he's like, oh, wait, maybe I shouldn't go down this path. Kind of like Adam Kinzinger pointing out that Patriot Fund is actually just a bunch of federal agents, but I digress on that point. But let's talk about Mika Brzezinski, because she's talking about Biden's staff. I don't know if you guys saw the story from Axios about how Biden likes to yell at his employees. He's also on record as having said something about how if you're ever rude to a coworker, he'll fire you on the spot, etc. No question about it, Jack. Give me a break. This man is the ultimate hypocrite because he's constantly yelling at his staff. Now, Democrats were really, and the media, but I repeat myself, Democrats were really trying to pump this up as in he's on the case, he's really intense, he's trying to make things happen. And it's just like, not actually. He just sounds like an old guy with dementia who doesn't know what's going on, but here we are. Mika Brzezinski scolds Biden's staff. I don't think they do a good job. MSNBC host tore into President Biden's aides and staffers Wednesday for what she described as a lack of competence in managing his public appearances. I think that Joe Biden is responsible for what he personally does in public, unless he's so old and so demented that he has no control of his own bodily actions. Could be. If that's the case she's making, then I'm going to have to agree with her on this one, but I don't think that's what she's trying to say. I think his staff needs to own his age. I'm going to be honest, I don't think they do a good job helping out the president, she said. I'm just saying, if you're managing a president's schedule and a president getting on stage and off stage, and yes, he's 80, you need to be there for him and you need to make a pathway, and you sure as hell better make sure he doesn't fall in a sandbag. And I blame the staff for that. Maybe if our president wasn't a ghoul, we would have less of these problems. Don't you think, Mika? But here you are defending him because you have to. You have no one to fall back on because his vice president is a diversity hire. Gavin Newsom waiting in the wings, slimy as hell. No one wants that man. Or you have, oh my gosh, the Democrat options are so insanely bad. I feel like Democrats are in as much of a bind with Biden as Republicans are with Trump. It's not good. 2024 is going to be ridiculous. I personally, honestly feel like both parties deserve to be reduced to smithereens, burned to ashes, and blown away with the wind because they are both worthless. Let's just start again. Let's have everybody go for themselves. Just vote for yourself. Put yourself on the ballot. We'll see what happens. We'll just pretend we don't need a government at all. We don't need a state. Doesn't matter. We'll make something work. We'll talk to the anarchists and figure something out because this ain't working. Joe Biden and Donald Trump being the top people that we could possibly look at to vote for, give me a break. Give me a break. Yes, Donald Trump is more rigorous than Joe Biden is, but so is my cat. So is like a houseplant. So is, a failing piece of fruit. Everything is more vigorous than Joe Biden, and I don't think that saying that Trump has more energy than Joe Biden does is exactly a point in his favor. Donald Trump is only 4 years younger than Joe Biden, but I digress. I mean, these are the things that are going to hurt him, Brzezinski continued, alluding to the coming 2024 presidential election. These are the things that are going to be played on a loop, okay? Let him do his job. You can't have these video images of the president tripping or the president going the wrong way. It's not going to work in this presidency because age is going to be a factor. It makes me mad. Well, it should make you mad. You are the dumb person who put him in office. You work with the media who works hand in glove with the Democrats, and you made this choice. You made this bed. You get to sleep in it. You're welcome. Good work. Good work. Really proud of you there, Mika. Really spot on analysis, but the Democrats are hurting my head right now almost as much as the Republicans. I feel it so much more keenly coming from the right, though, because I feel that the right should be so much more responsible and so much more on the ball, and I feel like a great deal more pressure and heaviness because I feel like the people I'm most politically closely aligned to should really be doing a better job. But alas, here we are. Oh well. Now, to something a little more lighthearted, and I think I'll probably wrap it up after this. Oh yeah, so we're going to do something lighthearted, and then I have something depressing, and then we'll call it good because my throat is burning. I am dying here. Let's look at this story. So, I'm calling this lady Jessie Smollett because of what she has to say in this story here. She says, today I walked into a new hospital with hair fresh out of a protective style afro sitting high and wide on top of my head. Are you writing slam poetry, lady? I digress. I checked in with my name and stated my purpose for being there and was sent to patient registration. No, I'm not having a surgery. I am the surgeon. What a noble human being. I am so impressed. I am sure that this action that someone took against her on purpose was 100% malicious and undoubtedly based on race. What do you guys think? This is nonsense. This is absolutely nonsense. Okay, first of all, before we move on, I have to say the obvious. This selfie, okay, first of all, if you're going to take a selfie at work and you feel like you look fly, own it. Just be like, I took a great picture at work, really like the light in the stairwell, whatever. I actually did that at work when I used to work at the hospital. On my lunch break, sometimes I'd go into the stairwell, really good, nice, diffuse light. I still use the pictures from that stairwell as some of my profile pictures across the internet. It's great. Own it. But if you are going to take a selfie, clean your camera because holy cow, what is this blur? Or are you just trying to emphasize your afro? Proud of you. Good for you having an afro. Whatever. I understand that it's hard to work with hair sometimes. I get it. Trust me when I say, this is my commentary, surgeons do not get into the OR wearing street clothes. You cannot even open the doors without your ID badge. This just sounds like an affirmative action grad, and a lying one at that. So let me see. We actually got to the bottom of this pretty quickly. I said, also, how hard is it to clean your darn camera? Seriously. Here's the missing context. And someone went and looked up her credentials. You are literally still serving a residency program at UCSF. Procedures performed by residents require supervision. Stop the cap. Try telling the truth. That's what that means. So this is really interesting too. So we're going to look at her majors and her focuses. Research and clinical interests include reproductive justice. That is abortion. That's all she cares about. Family planning. Adolescent pregnancy. Sexual health education, maternal mortality, health equity, and social justice. Health equity? Yeah, I was looking at a new podcast today because I'm looking for more to expand my horizons when it comes to like preparing for a kid. And I found one that has a specific emphasis on health equity. And I'm just like, I don't care what these people say now, because I'm not going to listen to somebody who believes in intersectionality and all this nonsense. I'm just not going to do it. Really not going to happen. But I just wanted to highlight that because it's so clear that this is exactly what she's going for. Now, her last name is Peacock, which should be a sign right there, because for someone who wants to be a surgeon, this is exactly the right last name, because surgeons are notoriously obnoxious personality-wise, notoriously arrogant, full of themselves, absolutely insufferable. Now, they do very important work. I would never discount the work they do, but the fact that they do important work means that they are really often very unnecessarily full of themselves. So she has the right last name for the job. I forget what the old joke is, but there's a joke in there somewhere about the difference between a surgeon and God. Sometimes God can admit he's wrong. That's what makes him different from a surgeon. I really think that's the case in this instance. And it's really telling that there's actually literally jokes about the arrogance of surgeons. Man, I don't know what exactly her point is here. I think she's trying to play the race card. She's certainly trying to play the victim card. I think she's trying to make it about her hair. And I'm really not sure how exactly we're supposed to take this. All I know is that she wants us to think that she's a victim. Now, I will say that when you're going into the OR, your hair has to be extremely tightly controlled, like these earrings in this picture. Not allowed to wear in the operating room. You can't wear anything. You really can't. In fact, I'm actually not sure if you can wear glasses in the operating room. I remember from my short stint at an operating room in Colorado that I worked with the secretary, and she was like, these surgeons drive me nuts because they will walk back past the partition with cups of coffee. Like they just own the joint. Like they can't be told boo because they think that they're untouchable because they're surgeons. You wouldn't critique a surgeon. A surgeon should be able to do whatever they want, right? She's like, I have to tell them every single day, you cannot take your open cup of coffee into the partition. I remember one time a fly got into the front desk there in the operating room, and it was like a full-blown disaster because obviously flies are covered in germs, and something bad is going to happen to a patient if a fly gets into an operating room. So hair like this might actually be a red flag for a surgical intern or a surgical resident. Pardon me, I wouldn't dare to call her an intern. But your hair really has to be under wraps when you go into the operating room. But let's see some of the comments, because people just were not having it with this. Thanks for reinforcing the idea that doctors are raging narcissists. I said especially surgeons. I mean, this is very, very well known. Her last name is so fitting. And Jim says, what happened when you explain that? Educated Hillbilly says, you're trying to very hard to be offended here. A ratio of patients to surgeons would make patient a good guess. That's entirely correct too. Brad says, and then they yelled MAGA country. You are several years late to the party. This just doesn't work anymore. Were you wearing any sort of identification? Why would they assume anyone is a surgeon before a patient? I get what you're trying to do here, but give me a freaking break. Someone else adds, she even says she was at a new hospital. Just the kind of diva I don't want as one of my doctors. And what I said in my commentary was that she strikes me as a diversity hire. And I actually had patients years ago who told me that they didn't want black doctors. And I was like, that's terribly racist. And then they went on to explain, black doctors, I went to medical school with them and they got into school more easily than I did because of affirmative action. And I was like, I really can't argue with that. And that actually makes me feel really bad for these doctors who worked really hard and made it all the way through medical school only to get out into practice, and for people to look at them and be like, I feel like it was probably easier for you to get into medical school than maybe an Asian person, so I'm going to trust you less. So affirmative action is actively undercutting actual black doctors. I have such an issue with that because I'm not a flaming racist leftist. But here we are. This lady is trying to make hay while the sun shines. I totally get it. This is in a response to Supreme Court ruling. Blah, blah, blah. We've seen Joy Reid come out and say that she was an affirmative action student. And everyone's just like, yeah, we already know. And we've had a few ladies come out and say that. And it's like, yeah, we can tell. We actually can tell. And I wish that weren't the case. I wish it weren't. Man, I don't know. Olivia Rondo, who has this hairstyle. She has these super fancy hairstyles that I always really appreciated when she was on Timcast IRL. She was talking about how sometimes people would give her static over her hair. I was like, yeah, I'm sure that happens sometimes, but this doesn't sound like someone gave her static over her hair. So here's what Olivia had to say. Honestly, I have had weird interactions with people about my hair, but it's usually more blatant or direct. Looking for an issue where there really isn't one is what bored entitled people do. 100%. And I honestly cannot imagine anyone more entitled than a surgeon, even a student surgeon, but especially someone who appears to maybe be an affirmative action student. It's hard to know anymore. I would like to be able to give her full credence and just say, I'm sure that you got into school just like everybody else. But it's like, okay, so all the focuses of your medical credentials are on social justice based nonsense, and you're trying to pull this card. Man, I don't know. I have a really hard time believing you. I would like to see some evidence of this, but I understand that you're just doing this to virtue signal. And lo and behold, you got the attention you requested. You got 48.7 thousand likes. Good for you. Aren't you famous? Isn't it nice to get your 15 minutes of fame? She's a lovely lady. I have absolutely no issues with her hair. I have absolutely no issues with her physical appearance. I wish her the best in life, but I will tell you right now that if you go into life with this mindset, you are not going to be happy, but you will always feel like a victim. So I guess there's something to that. But excuse me, I'm dying here. All right, we're going to hop to our last story of the evening. I think I can make it through. This is from Brandy Cruz's Patreon. She has a post over here. This one is really interesting, and I put it last because I don't really want this video to be demonetized too. Really, really interesting story. Let's read it. Make sure this email is deleted. How gender ideology led to a secret teacher-student relationship. Where does the teacher's care and concern for their students cross the line? Here are some direct quotes from these emails. You need to get a personal email set up so we still have a way to communicate. I would take you into my home anytime you need. Make sure this email is deleted too when we are done, because otherwise when your mom looks, you will be outed instantly. I kept emailing you, but I was worried your mom interfered because you saw my messages. Before you saw my messages, excuse me. Oh my gosh, I'm dying here. Those are real emails between an adult and a 10-year-old child. In every imaginable context, they are inappropriate. Yet inside one of America's most scrutinized public school districts, emails like those are a natural result of policies around gender identity that seek to keep parents in the dark. This goes into a secretive relationship between staff and child where deception and interference between the child and parent is obvious, says Alicia Perkins, who has spoken out nationally about several policies and practices inside the Olympia, Washington school district where all three of her children attended. That is past tense. I'm hoping that she removed them. Hard copies of the above emails were left in her mailbox anonymously by concerned parents. She later received thousands more that were part of a larger public disclosure request, all of which were provided to Undivided for review, and Undivided is Brandy Cruz's Patreon. Perkins, who blew the whistle on unauthorized sex ed lessons, student groups segregated by race, and the appointment of an anti-cop activist to the school board, Says the emails are the most egregious example yet of political and social agendas filtering into classrooms. This is probably the most disturbing thing I've seen because it is such a level of coordinated deception that so many people have to play a part in, including young children, Perkins said. It was just beyond shocking and goes beyond school policy of calling children by their preferred pronouns and gender. At the center of the emails, which span from summer to fall of 2022, are exchanges between Centennial Elementary School teacher Jennifer Knight and one of her 5th grade students. So 5th graders are 10 or 11 years old. For the purposes of this article, we will refer to the student as Taylor. Their real name obviously is not being used and has been redacted in documents to protect their identity because they're a minor. Holy cow, people, this person is a minor. While many of the emails from Jennifer Knight to students and staff reflect a dedicated teacher who cared about the well-being of her class, in April of 2022, she employed elaborate measures to keep Taylor's gender identity a secret from her parents. In an email to more than a dozen staff members on April 28th, she informed them that Taylor, a biological girl, would be using he, him, they, them pronouns. Crew Knight has a student who has recently changed their name and pronouns in school, and this email is to inform you that change because you work with this child in some capacity. Crew Knight is the nickname Knight uses for her class. Taylor has opened up to me these past few months and has just requested this change. Please understand that this change is his right and is not to be questioned. Please also know that they are not going by this change at home, and we will not be discussing this with family. Actively hiding from family members. In Olympia School District, policies allow for teachers and staff to hide such information from a student's parents, considering it classified health information. That is a stretch. District's policies are mostly in line with state policy from the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, which states that in general, school staff should not share a student's transgender or gender diverse status, legal name, or sex assigned at birth with others who could include other students, school staff, and non-school staff. Non-school staff could be interpreted to include parents. However, Knight took the secrecy a step further, engaging in private emails with Taylor and advising her to delete those emails to avoid detection. It raises a critically important question. Where does the teacher's care and concern for their students cross the line? Also concerning is that Knight's deception extended to in-person meetings with Taylor's mother, where she expressed concern about Taylor's mental health, all while concealing the child's challenges with gender dysphoria. In an email sent to Taylor's mother on May 9th, 2022, Knight asked for an in-person informal conference. I'm concerned about her mental health, her self-esteem, and how she feels about herself is low, and I think meeting in person, talking together would help Taylor feel supported. I don't have all the answers, but I was hoping we could chat and see if we could brainstorm some ways to support her. Oh, she sounds very supportive, doesn't she? Keep in mind, just 1 month later in June, Knight was not only encouraging Taylor to hide emails from her mom, but invited Taylor to her house to stay with her. This is starting to sound like a predator working with a victim. This is, if you guys have your children in public schools, I am begging you to remove them because we have no evidence that this is not happening everywhere, but it absolutely is happening over on the West Coast, California, Oregon, and Washington. And I'm sure in parts of the Northeast, in New England, in progressive Massachusetts, and places like that, things like this are happening as well. Let's see how they conclude this. I just wanted to throw that out there before I lose my ability to speak. Look at this, though. Can you help me understand pronouns? Sure, pronouns are words we use to talk about others without using their name. What are some common pronouns? People might refer she, her, he, him, or they, them. Using correct pronouns is a great way to show respect for others. What if I mess up someone's pronouns? Just apologize and remember for next time. Making the effort is what's important. So here you have the communist fist, you have the progress pride flag, you have the extra super duper progress pride flag with that purple circle I don't understand. The history of the pride flag. Are you talking about the person who invented it because that person was a pervert? Then we have everyone welcome here. Absolute nonsense. Let's see their conclusion. Beyond the specific case, Perkins says there is a concerning pattern of gender ideology being pushed on young students. She provided email exchanges between parents and teachers expressing concern about certain Pride Month activities and books. She also referenced dozens of Pride Month displays around the school district last month and questioned the impact it could have on young, impressionable minds. I hate to use the word agenda or indoctrination because I think they sound accusatory, but it gets to a point where there are no other words to describe this. We've gone beyond celebrating diversity and celebrating differences in identity and how you choose to express yourself, it does start to feel like a child cannot go into school without this being shoved on them. You do wonder what effect this is having on them. Yeah, you sure do. You sure do. And when we think about Taylor, whose teacher is literally saying to her mother, your child is having some issues with mental health, having some problems with self-esteem, and also pushing gender ideology on them, you have to stop and ask, you know what? This is starting to feel a little bit like indoctrination. This actually feels a lot like an issue, and maybe we should stop this right now. Seriously. But before we go, I will leave you with one further thought about Margot Robbie. Here we have from Jesse Kelly. Let's see what Jesse has to say. Margot Robbie is mid. Let me explain something to everyone. Sadly, this country is filled with miserable people who hate how their lives have turned out. They are not here for funny jokes. They're here because it's an outlet to spread misery if you want it to be. Block and move on. I think that is very useful advice, and we will be using that going forward for sure. Absolutely love that. I appreciate Jesse Kelly because he is very no-nonsense. All right, you guys, I'm shocked that I made it as long as I have. I feel like my esophagus is on fire, which is awesome. I'm going to go drink some milk and sit up and do jumping jacks or whatever I can to knock this off. They say that if you have a bunch of heartburn, your baby's going to have a lot of hair, so I'm definitely going to keep an eye on that because I feel like I've certainly done the work to get a baby with a bunch of hair. So I'll keep you guys in the loop. Let me see what you guys have to say in the chat. Adrian, hello. She says, narcissist, most doctors are. Yeah, absolutely. Wake Up Waverly says, I am the science. That's exactly what Dr. Anthony Fauci had to say. Dr. Peacock with a scalpel in the operating room. That is terrifying. I agree. Let's see here. Living as a victim is in fact sad. I could give you a hug for covering this. I'm not sure what you're referring to, two ladies, but I'm very glad to hear that. Yeah, for sure. It's a crazy situation I've been following. Teacher here in Waverly, New York was just put on blast by me. The school has an email set up that is a direct line between kids and teachers. No parent access. He ended up being taken out by cops. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's crazy to me. Crazy. Andy says, I just got an anti-fentanyl PSA interruption. Oh, okay. Well, we weren't talking about illicit drugs. We didn't even touch on it, even though we managed to talk about Hunter Biden without doing so. And Andy is saying like, comment, subscribe, etc. Share. Yes, so many increasing numbers of exclamation points. Thank you, dear, for doing that. I appreciate that very much. Somebody had a comment about not being Second Amendment promoting, and I just have to say we didn't talk about the Second Amendment at all. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. I'm strongly pro Second Amendment. In fact, I love that about Florida very much. The Edge says, hey, Lids, hey. Yes, one of my last videos did get demonetized because I mentioned QAnon and lizard people, so I should have censored myself a little bit better. We will get back on Rumble here before too long, and we will make that happen for sure. All right, you guys, I will see all of you tomorrow. I hope you all have a great evening. I will see you all same time tomorrow. Go over and enjoy Timcast IRL in the interim. Until next time, bye, guys. How's it going?